When you color your objects in one-point perspective, I want you to think again about how light reflects and shines on a real object in real 3D space. For my example, I'm going to use my cardboard box again. And if I asked you what color this box was, you'd probably say brown. But I want you to take a little bit of a closer look at the box, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see the front, the side, and the bottom because it's above your eye level or the horizon line. Are all three sides that you can see of the box, are they all the same shade of brown? You can see that this is the lightest side of the box. This is the next lightest, and then this would be the darkest side that I can see. The reason is because we have a light source shining, mostly on the front, a little bit on the side, and not as much on the bottom.
So when it comes to coloring your shapes, you'll need to think about the same thing. Where is your light source coming from? And then you'll need to color your shapes accordingly. So every side of each shape should be a different shade or tint. For each shape, you'll need to choose one color to color that shape. So for this one, I'm going to use colored pencil. You could use crayon as well. The reason why I like using those is that because it is easier to color with different pressures to show lights and darks. So I will say my light source is coming from my top right corner. And so I know that the top sides of my shapes are all going to be the lightest, the top right sides when I'm looking at them. The bottoms are probably going to be the darker shapes. So I'm going to choose one color for one shape. And I'll start thinking about if my light source is coming from here, what would be the lightest part of this box? Well, probably the top and this side that I can't see. So the next one would probably be the front. So I'm going to color the side edges first. And then I'm just going to color this in fairly lightly in small strokes so I can get a nice, smooth, solid color. Now that I colored this part of my box, I need to determine what would be the next lightest. If my light is coming from the top, like it's coming from the sky, this side would probably be the next darkest because light can still get to it from above, and then my bottom part of my box will be the darkest. So this will be my medium color. Always trace the edges first so you get a nice crisp edge and then fill in the middle. When you look at the sides of your box, you should be able to squint your eyes and see the difference between those sides. My last side needs to be my darkest. All right, now even though I can't really see my pencil lines that well, I can still tell the form of this rectangle because of the different sides with the different values. I have my darker shade, my lighter tint, and then a mid-tone to show the different sides. I'm going to continue this coloring with picking different colors for each shape and then coloring tints and shades, different pressures, to show the different light sources. Some of these shapes you'll have to make your own decisions on which side would be the lightest. I actually chose to make this left angle lighter than the front of the shape because this is angled towards the top, and so I felt like it would get more light. You might have to make those decisions and just think through logically. If your light is coming from a certain area, think about what would be the lightest and the darkest. And if you're not sure, you can always take an object around your house and test it out with a lamp or a light source like that, so you can figure it out for real. Also, another nice thing about using the colored pencil is that if you make something too dark, you can always lighten it up. Since this angle is angled towards the top right, I'm actually going to make it a little bit lighter by using an eraser so that it matches the tint a little bit better. All right, I'm going to continue with my theme of some cooler colors. So I'm going to stick with my blues and violets and greens throughout the rest of the piece.
You can see that underneath that purple triangle, I decided to shade a little bit of a darker blue, and that is to create a cast shadow effect.
I saved this cylinder for last because I want to show you the best way to color a rounded shape. If my light source is coming, again, still from the top, I know that this top part would be the lightest section. What I like to do is to curve along the curve of the cylinder, and that's called working with the contour or a cross contour, where you follow the curve. So when I color this shape, I'm going to curve this way with my pencil strokes. And then as I curve down, this part of the shape is curving away from the light because it's going underneath the shape, the cylinder. So I'm going to color this darker. So I either go towards the end of the shape like this, and then I also curve along the curve of the cylinder as well. That will help you show the curve of the cylinder. And then the front of my cylinder is probably going to be somewhere in this middle here because it's not totally curved away from the light, but it's not facing the light like this top edge is. So I'm going to pick one of these middle colors. Now that I have all my shapes drawn, I'm going to think about what I want to do in the background. And before I add color to the background or a design, I'm going to erase any extra pencil lines that I have here. Decide what you want in your background for your 1-point perspective drawing. You could keep your horizon line and have a sky and the earth. You could have a solid background. I think I'm going to go with an optical illusion. And so I'm going to have smaller circles radiating, coming out from the center of my vanishing point, and then I will color those in a pattern. Just going to map it out with pencil first. And you can see my thickness of the lines are getting thicker and thicker as I am coming towards the viewer because everything's getting closer to me as it goes away from the vanishing point. So these sections I'm drawing a little bit bigger, and then I'll add some color. As I'm touching up some of the rings that are going back in space, I'm making sure that I try to curve as much as possible with the curve of the shape. I'm not coloring in random directions, but I'm more adding detail curving with the ring so that it continues to show that movement of the circles. And now I have my shapes, my forms, which show depth with the different sides, also with the edges further away that are smaller. And then I also have my rings of my tunnel, which are larger away from the vanishing point, meaning they're bigger and closer. And then as they get further away with the illusion of depth, they get thinner and smaller. And so that helps show perspective with the depth. And I can even add some extra lines of texture going with the curve to add a little bit more detail in my background as well. With this skill of one-point perspective, you will be able to show depth and realism in whatever you draw.